Well, thank you, Paige, and hello, everyone. Welcome to today's program. For many of you who have attended previous webinars, it's great to have you back. Today, we'll be helping you polish your ability to make wise reserve decisions in this advanced concepts webinar. And I'm going to start out by telling you what brought me here today. It's the 71 Unit Association in Southern California. Some of you who know my background, know my story, know that shortly after buying into this association in 1982 as a young professional, I became president at my first homeowners meeting. That happened when the president resigned, and as the only homeowner in the meeting, they looked at me and asked if I'd like to be the new president. Well, I said, sure, thinking how hard could it be if it was something that they could just do and then step away from at a moment's notice. Well, I had a mortgage. I was high. I needed a roommate to be able to pay my bills. I bought a condo because it was the only type of home on the market I could afford to purchase, and I was done being an apartment renter. So at the end of the meeting, the treasurer came over to me and privately told me the association didn't have hardly any money. It was surviving month to month, and the roof had started leaking last year. So the association was in a financial jam. It was hard for me to digest the thought that I'd potentially bought into a home that was full of problems. It was going to cost me a lot of money. But 3 years later, after a lot of volunteer hours, working with other board members and rallying the homeowners, passing a special assessment, I sold my unit for a healthy profit. We were able to turn that association around and get it on its feet. And that was enough of a profit that I could buy a fixer-upper standalone home of my own. And I learned enough lessons about what got associations into this kind of financial jam and how to get out of that jam that I launched Association Reserves. So settle in, and I'll share some of these lessons with you today to help guide your association or the associations you manage safely, successfully, and responsibly into the future. It's important to understand that this entire community association concept of homeownership is fragile. It relies on untrained volunteer leaders like me back in 1982. It relies on the participation of owners to vote and the reliance on those same homeowners to fund anything and everything at the association included in the budget. And as I learned, owning real estate is expensive. So community association living is not the carefree living that it has been advertised to be. Mother Nature and Father Time are two powerful forces, and they ensure that there is constant financial pressures because of the ongoing deterioration that they cause. And that creates friction between the board, who's trying to lead the organization forward, and owners that are hanging on to that false promise of inexpensive and carefree community association living. So we have a delicate situation and we have friction just right at the base of it. Well, this is going to be an advanced session today. So we lay the foundation of reserve studies in other webinars, our Reserve Study Basics series. So if at any time you feel like we've skipped over something that you feel like you just missed, you can find that webinar recording and outline, actually many other resources on our website, reservestudy.com. As you can see, I've highlighted, click on resources, then webinars, scroll down, and you can see Reserve Study Basics is easy to find. But today will be all advanced tips, but we're going to keep it pretty simple and clear. Do more of the green check marks and fewer of the red X's. And that's going to be your scorecard moving forward. So what are you working with here? It's a lot of rejection, and you're trying to not do a song and dance like a used car salesman. You can see the typical excuses here, why some homeowners or board members may not want one. They're asking, what's it good for? Why should I care? It's not my problem. I don't want my dues to go up. So what do you do? Well, we're going to arm you with some good answers in today's program. And if you don't catch those good answers, by all means, ask them in the Q&A at the end, and I'll get to as many as I can what time allows, and I'll catch the rest in the written outline. So we do want you to be careful in your communication. Reserve study doesn't define the costs. Mother Nature and Father Time define the costs. Blame them. They're the bad guy in this story. Reserve study just lays out the plan to deal with these costs, the income against the expenses. Without a reserve study, You're going to pay those exact same costs, but you're just going to move from one special assessment to another, and that's no way to live. With a reserve study laying out the ongoing cost of deterioration, owners can pay their fair share of ongoing deterioration on an ongoing budgeted basis. Because if you take care of the present, the future takes care of itself, and you don't leave future homeowners or future board members, even future new board members like I was, in a hole that they're going to have to dig themselves out of. The reserve study profession is built on National Reserve Study standards. I'm not making it up here. This is not anything proprietary to the Association Reserves, and those standards define component selection, calculations, and terminology. A reserve study prepared according to national standards is going to provide you with good guidance, providing you a funding plan that provides for those inevitable, predictable, and huge projects in your association's future. Bottom line, it's going to provide for sustainability. Now, after the tragic collapse of Champlain Tower South in Florida in 2021, national best practice was updated to recommend a with site visit reserve study at least every third year. And for a budget line item that is typically one of your largest, it's often 15 to 40% of your total budget, getting a regular update on how big that ongoing deterioration bill is for your association, a bill that is as real as any other bill that needs to be paid, that's a responsible plan, a responsible interval. And I'll include links to the standards and the accompanying explanation of the standards, has a bunch of calculations and examples in the outline of this program. So I'll start with a few mistakes to avoid. The first is failing to update your reserve study. It's easy right here to look back on the last few years with high inflation and supply chain issues and understand that a roof replacement cost from 5 years ago in 2019, actually 2020, is not what a roof is going to cost today. You need to base your planning on accurate information. Old information does not provide good guidance. That's why a national recommendation, best practice, update your with site visit at least every third year. You can't get too far behind. The next is to avoid delaying projects. You generally don't save money by delaying a project. It still needs to get done. It doesn't go away. And when you get around to it, sometimes it costs more because it needs additional work. So look at this wood siding on your screen. By delaying painting it a couple of dollars per square foot, they now need to replace it at $15 to $20 a square foot, about 10 times as much. So they just shot themselves in the foot. Another common mistake I see is spending reserves carelessly. I see new board members coming in, and they see 100,000 or $1 million in reserves, and they think, wow, great, no problem giving staff a raise or an end of year bonus or paying the big insurance bill or redecorating the lobby or maybe add a pickleball court at the side of the association. Reserves are funds set aside for a specific purpose. Every one of those dollars already has a job. And even with all that cash, it looks like a lot of money. Most associations are underfunded. So that money is not available to be spent on non-reserve projects. And the flip side of that problem is neglecting budgeted reserve transfers or making only partial reserve transfers. The roof and the asphalt laugh at that kind of thinking because they're deteriorating on schedule, no matter if your budget is tight or not. Deterioration is an unstoppable freight train heading down the mountain. Skipping required reserve funding only leads to problems. And as I was thinking about this webinar, I started thinking like a NASCAR or an Indy 500 race. Mother Nature and Father Time are continuously racing around the track. If you slow down or stop in pit row, you're going to get behind. They're going to keep on lapping and you're just going to fall behind. So keep on racing. Keep making those reserve transfers. You've got to do your level best to keep up with ongoing deterioration. And another mistake is being casual about your investments. Whatever yours is, 50,000, 100,000, $1 million, we see two mistakes all too often. And they are letting your reserves grow over the $250,000 FDIC insurance limit, meaning they are at risk of being lost. And the second is not maximizing your interest earnings. Maximizing reserve interest going from 1 to 4% nowadays is easy money to be adding to reserve funding. It's often tens of thousands of dollars per year. And it's easy, really. If your bank can't do it, if your management company can't direct it to get done, there's companies like HOAinvest.com that specialize in helping associations safely manage and maximize their reserves. You don't have to do it. Just need to make a phone call or email or two. And all of a sudden, a lot of money going into your association. Finally, in this list is a mistake we see condo associations making. Now, a condo association needs to be setting aside at least 10% of its total budget for mortgages in the association to be Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac qualified or approved. Being Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac qualified is important because it allows home buyers to get the most attractive mortgage terms or rates available. And for those prospective buyers, low interest means they can afford to pay higher home prices. So being Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac qualified boosts home prices. And you do that very simply by setting aside at least 10% of budget towards reserves. It's not a big ask. Keep in mind that most associations need to set aside 15 to 40% of the budget towards reserves to offset ongoing deterioration. So 10% is just a Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac minimum target. It's usually inadequate as a reserve funding target. So setting aside less than 10% of total budget towards reserves, it's a big mistake on two levels. It damages your prospective homeowner's ability to get attractive loans, and it probably means that you're not setting aside enough cash. So remember the goal. The goal is to have enough money to be able to do your scheduled reserve projects on time. And how do you win? You win by preparing in advance, just like any sports team, any orchestra, any dance, any organization prepares in advance. The way you do it is collect the dollars and you spend wisely over time. And I spoke about winning, so let's talk about rules of the game. There's actually two sets of rules, reserve rules and board member behavior rules. Let's talk about reserve rules first. And there are four rules. Expenses are inevitable. Remember, Mother Nature and Father Time are driving the bus here. The board is responsible to manage expenses and pay the bills of the association. That's just the way it is in this community association world. Delays doing projects regularly means the projects get more expensive. And finally, the homeowners always get stuck paying the bills. You're never going to do the homeowners a favor by ignoring the reality of expenses and delaying projects or pretending they're not there. The homeowners are always going to get stuck paying. And the second set of rules is the business judgment rule. It's the board member rules by which their decisions will be measured. So in order to be defensible, board member decisions need to be made in good faith, which means they were loyal to the needs of the association over their own personal interests, like I want to save time or I want to save money. Number two, they need to act in the best interests of the association, like they were elected to do, meaning follow the governing documents and provide quality services and care to the association. And number three, through making reasonable, prudent, informed decisions. Now, just like I was, and just like you all were the first time you were board members and managers, you can probably remember your first board meeting. You can't be expected to be experts in everything, but board members are expected to ask questions and seek help when you don't know the answer. I reached out to our manager so many times the first few months after I was president. I reached out to our landscaper. I reached out to our roofer. What's going on here? What can you tell me that I need to know? So we're here as reserve study providers to provide guidance, helping board members make wise green checkmark decisions when it comes to reserve planning. So don't feel that we're inaccessible. If you have a question, reach out to your reserve study provider. First illustration of this. You may be wondering, are your reserves adequate? Well, there is a definition in the 2023 updated National Reserve Study Standards, and it's shown on your screen. It's a combination of reserve fund size being basically big enough and a stable and equitable funding plan that provides funding for all the anticipated upcoming reserve projects without reliance on last minute special assessments or loan. That's the definition of adequacy. That's what we're trying to accomplish here. Stability, funding, sufficient funds so the projects can get done on time. So it's a combination of cash in reserves and a funding plan that's going to be smooth and reliable and faithful. And the result will be that you have sufficient funds to get things done at the right time. So if you're not comfortable with answering this question at your association, ask your reserve site provider. Are we okay? Are our reserves adequate? And they should reference this simple sentence here and give you a clear explanation. And anyway, you're going to want to know because it's probably required in your governing documents that you set aside sufficient funds for the care of the property. So know that, pursue that. All right, let's turn the corner to funding obligations. What are some advanced concepts here? Remember, it's an ongoing race. The funding needs to keep up with the rate at which things are deteriorating. The first, as I mentioned a few minutes ago, is to put the funds to work by having the bank step up and fund reserves in a meaningful way. It's great to have a lot of interest coming in because that way your homeowners aren't paying the entire bill themselves. And that means maximizing your interest earnings. There's going to be a little bit of a tax bite out that. You might lose 20, 25%, maybe 30% of the interest that you get, but it's so worth it getting that higher interest. The second is to perform your ongoing preventive maintenance. Taking care of things makes them last longer, which saves you money. Money spent on maintenance is money well spent. Third, execute your projects on time, which eliminates that expense of deferred maintenance when the scope and cost of a project goes up because there's more damage that's occurred over more time. And the fourth is a nuance that most people get completely wrong. They think that associations with a strong reserve fund are setting aside the most towards reserves. That's wrong, and that's actually the opposite of the truth. Remember that the costs are stable. They are what they are. We're talking about funding here. Associations with low reserve funding, not very much cash in the bank, have to make up for their low cash in the bank with special assessments. And those associations with a weak reserve fund have to set aside much more than their rate of deterioration, what we'll call catch-up mode, to make up for reserve funding not done by prior owners or those special assessments. Their rate of reserve funding is high because they've got to collect the funds necessary in a short period of time that prior boards didn't do. So associations with a strong reserve fund, they're already prepared. So they're at their rate of reserve funding. It's smooth and stable. It's actually lower than those associations that are in catch-up mode. It's kind of like you have to step harder on the gas on a freeway on-ramp than you do when you're moving steadily along with the flow of traffic. When you're in catch-up mode, you're stepping on the gas and it's costing the association more money. But I got one more, and that's how to save on your reserve study itself. You can, of course, pay us for a full create from scratch reserve study, but with regular site visit updates every third year, your reserve study provider gets into a pattern. It's not a big project for your reserve study professional. Reserve studies cost based on the hours that they expect to spend on your project. And if it's a regular recurring project, the hours are less and it's less expensive. Now, remember that even in between that every third year project, you can get no site visit updates to tune that reserve study to make it even more accurate and to give your reserve study provider in between sneak peek at what's going on at the association. And those no site visit updates, the cost is almost trivial. So that's how you stay on track. You get current costs, current understanding of your reserve obligations, and you get prepared for upcoming projects. And this is how great strategy for playing to win the game that we talked about a few minutes ago. Having sufficient cash to be able to do your projects on time. All right, let's talk about spending. If you save on your spending, your reserve funding requirements are lower. But first, what really is saving? What doesn't save money is stalling or delaying projects because, again, those projects still need to get done. Maybe there's a few exceptions like a rec room water heater that no one uses because no one goes to the bathroom in the rec room and washes their hands. No one notices that, but that's the exception, and that's a trivial kind of project anyway. But your regular reserve projects, they still need to be accomplished. So stalling, you just risk them getting more expensive as you delay. Think asphalt, think painting, think roofing. So in general, you have to be very careful about stalling or delaying a reserve project. If you have any concerns about if you can or shouldn't, check with your reserve study professional. They'll give you some inside scoop on that. And one question that I had, I think just a week ago, was someone who said, I can save on my reserves by spending this $5,000 out of the operating account. What do you think about that? And I was thinking, well, it's still $5,000, so you're not saving any money. You're just spending it from the right pocket instead of the left pocket. So that's not really saving. You're still spending the money. So cash for every expense comes from the homeowners, no matter what pocket it comes from. So let's talk about how do you actually save cash. And one way is to perform your projects efficiently by coordinating them together. So if you can have the flooring installer lay the hallway carpet and the stairwell carpet at the same time, that's going to save them time, which lowers their price. Same with doing interior remodel projects like a clubhouse or a common room remodel all together. Painting, flooring, furniture, lighting, things like that. Or having a painter do all your accent painting at the same time. Think wood trim, ironwork, what else? Front doors, things like that. Okay. So when you save them money, you lower their bid price. We like that. And take good care of your assets. I mentioned this earlier. Preventive maintenance is the key. Do projects on schedule to care for the community. It has two big benefits. One is the place looks nicer, increasing pride of ownership and property values. And the second is every dollar spent on preventive maintenance lowers your reserve funding by that much and more. So it's money well spent. Don't get cash sensitive where you just don't want to spend money on touch up painting because you're going to shoot yourself on the foot with your reserves on that. That wood fence is going to only make it to 12 years instead of 15. So take good care of your roof, take good care of your painting, take good care of your decking, take good care of all the things around your association because you want to stretch the reserve project useful life as much as possible. You do that with regular preventive maintenance. So this is a visual about cycling your projects together. The top half of the page here is cycling your trim paint, front door paint, ironwork paint, maybe every 5 years. Boom, do them all together. Every 5 years, do them all together. Every 5 years, do them all together. If you scatter them around, you're mobilizing the painter to come out. It's going to be net more expensive. Or the same with the hallway paint or the carpet replace. Or, as I said a moment ago, carpet, hallway carpet, and stairwell carpet, things like that. Coordinate your projects together to get the best cost from your service providers. And be wise about taking good care of your things. This is a concept we call layering your projects, where it's one boiler, but you have a repair cycle that occurs at the midway point of its life. So every midpoint of its life, you have a repair, and then you replace it, repair, replace it. It's a great way to maximize life, great way to have your reserve study give you a reminder, give you the cash to do these valuable projects. And so look at your reserve study to help you with getting your major projects done on time. Now, some preventive maintenance can be done out of operating fund. Some, like this one, can be done out of the reserve fund. If you have any concerns, again, check with your reserve study provider. Say, hey, what do you think about doing this project out of operating reserves? And they'll give you specific guidance for your association. And another thing, want you to think long term. Develop a good relationship with your plumber, painter, roofer, asphalt, all those kinds of things. Be a good account from a business perspective. A good account always gets the most favorable pricing, which means less cost to your homeowners. Discuss the projects far in advance, have the money ready from reserves, and do it at a time when it's convenient for them. It's going to be more expensive if you got your roofer up on the roof in the middle of a rainstorm trying to do it when everyone else is trying to get the roofer's time. So Get your major projects done in favorable times, pay on time, and get favorable pricing. All right, now let me start to wrap up our program today with a little bit of teaching on some miscellaneous advanced concepts. The first is working with a reserve study professional. We're here to guide you towards, again, what's winning, having enough cash to do your projects on time. And the way you can help is to give us the facts, the cost and history, who did it, what was the scope of work on your various reserve projects. Keep a record. Have that record handy. Share it with your reserve study provider. We like to know what's on your mind. What is the current board's priorities? Is it all about landscaping, or is it turned to something else at the association? How has the demographics changed? And so what are the board's priorities at this time? Let us know. We can maybe shuffle some things around a little bit to meet your priorities. Don't worry about having undue influence. It's not like we have to be sterile and can't hear from you. We want to know what's going on at the association. We do want to have the facts, and we do know when to dig in our heels and say, we understand that you never liked the color of the pool furniture, but it's in good shape, and we're going to let it run for another 3 or 4 years until we replace it. We know when to dig in our heels. Don't take offense. And I want to make it clear, interest is good, but don't ever think it will completely offset inflation. You're never going to offset inflation with interest. That's a fallacy, and it's actually an absurd notion. And the reason is nothing to do with the interest rate or the inflation rate. It's all about the asset, because interest is only earned on the actual dollars you have in the bank, which is a small number. Inflation works on the entire value of all the assets, and that's a big number. So if you total up all your reserve components in your reserve study, that's what's changing with inflation each year. Whereas you're earning interest only on the cash you actually have in the bank, much smaller number. So maximize your interest, but let go of the idea that you're trying to offset inflation. You can use the banker's money, great, but don't think that it'll keep up with inflation. Just won't happen. The math, it just isn't there. And I wanted to put some green check marks on a page and leave you with some strong things at the end here. And these are things you can do in your best interest. Always characterize reserve funding as the cost of offsetting ongoing deterioration. Don't ever call them contributions. That sounds like it's voluntary. The deterioration bill is as real as any other bill at the association. It doesn't go away if ignored. That roof still needs to be replaced. That water heater still needs to be replaced. It's still there. And do your reserve funding steady and smooth through the years. Design it so it offsets deterioration, so every owner pays their fair share over time. If one person is there for 3 years, they're going to pay 3 times as much as the person who was only there for 1 year. And no one gets stuck at the special assessment year. And finally, focus on your reserve funding being a multi-year plan. Many of you are in a underfunded or significantly underfunded situation. That's unfortunate, but it happened over many years or perhaps even many decades. So understand that you may need a plan, a multi-year plan to stabilize your association and then get out of it. Fortunately, many of your costs are far away, a few years away, so you have some time to begin that plan and start to make some progress. But do start on that path. Start working the multi-year plan to build a better future for your association. So speaking about building a better future for your association, we've got this tool that we call uPlanIt. And it is actually really cool. It allows you to get your fingers into your reserve study and see what happens when you push some of the numbers around. You can find some areas of sensitivity, and no more just here's your reserve study. Good luck. Call me if you have a question. And this new tool allows you to test what's actually going on with your reserve plan. And it's called uPlanIt. It's from Association Reserves. It's free throughout your budget season while you're working on your budget. And when you log in to our online client center, you can see your documents here, your reserve studies, and you just click to see uPlanIt. And it's real simple. It's your sandbox to play with the numbers and see what happens. It doesn't affect your reserve study, but it allows you to see what happens if I do this, what happens if I do that. And uPlanIt solves but we want to make some adjustments due to some things we forgot to tell you about, or we have some homeowner questions that we want to find out what the deal is. Budgeting's hard enough. So we've set you up with a simple but powerful tool to test your ideas and see what happens. And that's what we want for you. We want you to know what's going to happen. We want to see, oh, that's a bad idea. Face the facts that you may need to increase reserve funding because we don't want your association to turn into this place called Aspen Creek. When I became board member at my association, I was left with a bag of trouble. We had to dig ourselves out of that hole. So remember that the decisions you make today are going to set your association up for success or failure. And I want you doing the hard work as board members to see your home values increase. And as you do that, you're going to carry all the other people in the association along with you. And that's leverage. That may be some of the most valuable work you do on a dollars per hour basis, elevating the tide that lifts all the boats at your association, raising home prices for all the homeowners. So remember from that business judgment rule, that third rule is to reach out when you don't know the answer. I hope I made it clear, gave you some good ideas for today. But if you really don't know, reach out to your reserve study professional. We're here to assist you in the field of reserve planning, helping you collect the right amount of cash. I hope you're almost ready to say it so that you can get your big common area repair and replacement projects done on time. So what more do we have? We have a deep library of additional resources on our website, reservestudy.com. There you'll find articles, videos, policy templates, and more. And if you want the Association Reserves Advantage for your association, getting us on your team, you can get a no-cost reserve study proposal to create a full reserve study or one of our update products by clicking on the Request a Proposal button at the upper right corner of our home page. And while you're on our home page, if you didn't get a notification of this webinar, you can scroll to the bottom of any page and sign up for our email list. We also have a great book called Understanding Reserves available on Amazon. It's a great desktop reference of reserve study basics and some of the advanced concepts we went over today. If you're want to reach for it and look for it and bookmark it and dog ear it and have a ready reference, that's a great asset to have for your association. And I'll include a link to a free download of Chapter 1 in the outline of today's program. And another resource, another free one, is our weekly 30-minute podcast for board members called HOA Insights, Common Sense for Common Areas. For you podcast listeners, it's the best. It's designed to encourage and equip board members on a weekly basis by profiling some board heroes, inspiring stories, interviews with industry experts, insights on current events, more things like that. You can subscribe from any of the major podcast platforms, listen from the show's website, hoainsights.org, or you can watch on our YouTube channel. Board members, I think you'll really like it, and you'll find a home in that online community. Managers, send your board members there. It's a safe place for them to get regular training, encouragement, and reinforcement on best practices, all the things that you're probably saying to them over and over and over again. They're going to hear it from us on the podcast. And with that, I'll bring our prepared contents to a close and turn the microphone over to Paige, who will coordinate our Q&A time together.